So my name is Trisha Mason. I run the service learning program here in the Portland campus, and I'm joined by my colleague Donna Gaspar-Jarvis. This is a collaborative interprofessional education and Bridges to Multicultural Collaboration event, and we're really excited and we're very fortunate today to have representatives and advocates from the Homeless Voices for Justice, as well as the Maine Hunger Initiative, and as part of the Preble Street Resource Center. This is a really appropriate and very informative presentation for students, as we are very engaged in local homeless shelters and working with homelessness and poverty here in Maine. So any of you who haven't had a chance to do that, I encourage you to listen to the opportunities that are available to you and get in touch with me if you'd like to get more engaged in the variety of service learning that we have going on within each of these organizations and within this population here in Portland. So without further ado, we're going to hand this over, and really would like to give a warm welcome to the Maine Hunger Initiative and the Homeless Voices for Justice. I think you're going to be really touched and really engaged in what they're doing today. So welcome.
Okay, hi, welcome. My name is Michelle Lamb. I'm the program manager at the Preble Street Maine Hunger Initiative, and I'm just really pleased with the turnout today, so thank you so much for coming out to support us today. Our first speaker is walking down the middle aisle right now, Jim Devine. Hi, Jim. If you don't, are you ready to jump right in?
I'm always ready.
Okay.
You know, I was just having a cigarette on the sidewalk, but I went out and get a ticket for it.
All right, well, we're ready for you. So
Okay.
I'm going to let Jim get settled here just 1 second. So we have a lot of information that we're going to try to pack into the first part of our presentation, where it's going to be a mixture of some of the Homeless Voices for Justice advocates telling some personal stories. We're going to show some video clips, and then we're going to switch to Maine Hunger Initiative, which is the program I work for. I will give you a brief overview of the Maine Hunger Initiative. Some of the interns and AmeriCorps Vistas will share some stories, and then also some mixed in with some video clips. Then we're going to break, and we're going to do some interactive activities at these 4 stations that are in the middle of the room. And we're going to try our best to get about 20 to 25 people around each table. So if you guys will be patient with us for the second half, hopefully we can do that. So without further ado, here's Jim.
Well, good morning, everybody. I'm happy to be here. It reminds me of, I used to go to St. Joseph's when I was a little kid. But anyhow, I'm an advocate with Homeless Voices for Justice out of Preble Street, and sometimes people don't know what Homeless Voices for Justice is. So Homeless Voices for Justice simply is a small group of people who have experienced homelessness, who works together with Preble Street support to advocate on issues that affect homeless people and low-income people in generally. And Homeless Voices for Justice, don't take my bag too far. Okay. So, Homeless Voices for Justice was founded in 1995, and I became involved with Homeless Voices for Justice in the year 2000 when I was a resident at the Salvation Army Adult Rehabilitation Center for alcoholics right down the street from Preble Street. Although I have had relapses over the years, so I've been in and out. You know, I've been involved with them again for about 4 years now, and I'm happy to be involved with them, and I'm happy to be sober. So anyhow, Homeless Voices for Justice has been an interesting experience for me, and we've had a lot of what I would call successes over the years. We've worked on a lot of issues. One thing that we worked on was hate crimes against homeless people, which a number of years ago we were meeting a lot of people who had been on the street and had been beaten up because they were vulnerable, and it had become kind of like a hobby among some young people to target homeless people, and there was a whole issue about it and on the media, and we had some protests. We had a protest out at Clark Pond Theater because they were showing this movie called Date Movie, which was a comedy, and one of the scenes in it was a bunch of kids finding a homeless person and beating him up. Like that was supposed to be funny, I guess, you know. And so, you know, and then there was these bum fight videos that were going around that showed a game of beating up homeless people. And we worked with some of the video providers to kind of have those things eliminated if possible. Not that we favor censorship, but we didn't like what was happening. And we worked with Steve Rowe, the Attorney General at that time, on this issue, and what it came down to was there was a hate crime legislation passed, and Governor Baldacci signed the bill at the soup kitchen at Preble Street, which was a pretty unique occurrence, and was one of the first in the nation's hate crimes that would allow a judge to have aggravating sentencing if the person was targeted because they were homeless. And as part of that legislation, we go up to Vassalboro, to the police academy, twice yearly to give a presentation to the officers in training about how to interact with homeless people on a respectful level. And it can be a win-win situation in that if you have a good relationship with the people on the street, you may find out about something that may be about to happen that you can work with. So, and also, we talked with them a lot about how homeless people are hesitant to approach police officers with a concern because of their negative interaction over the past with the police. And that was one thing. Another thing we're involved with is what we call the You Don't Need a Home to Vote campaign, where right now we're quite busy with the upcoming election, staging candidates forums at Preble Street with Mike Michaud and Shelley Pingree and everybody. I don't want to go down the list of names. Governor LePage declined our invitation, which is not too surprising. But anyhow, and over the years, we've registered about 2,500 people. And one thing that I'm particularly interested in is that we register young people at the teen center, and we also go over to Long Creek in South Portland, the young person's prison, I guess you could call it, and register incarcerated young people who can vote for absentee ballots, and it's a real good it's a lot of interest because a lot of times a person on the street, they don't care whether they vote or not. But these young people seem particularly interested in getting involved in the process, and it's nice to be a part of that. And we've had partnerships over the years. I don't know how I'm doing on time, but we had partnership over the years. Okay, over the years with, right now we have a rather positive relationship with the current police chief, Michael Suschuk, and there was a thing called criminal trespass ordinances, where if a person was in Deer and Oaks and was doing something like drinking a beer or something inappropriate, they could be banned from that place for a whole year, which seemed like, since these people didn't have many places to go, it seemed like a severe sentence. So anyways, the police chief compromised with us, and all these were cut down to 6 months, and there was an appeals process put in place with Trish McAllister, the neighborhood prosecutor, to make sure that if a person got one of these tickets, it was a valid consideration. Because some of these tickets said not using the park for its appropriate use, which is kind of a shaky definition. And those violations, the prosecutor threw them right out because they were invalid in her opinion, which was my opinion also. So anyhow, you know, I'll talk a little bit about my own experience a little bit later. So I guess I'm done.
Yes, if you want to introduce John.
Oh, yeah, sure. Oh, yeah, well, you know, we have other advocates here. We have actually, well, we'll talk about our tragic occurrence a little bit later. But anyhow, Mary Jo Schofield and John and a former advocate, Tom Pataic, is here, who now is well, I'm running out of time, but now is a Veterans Outreach Counselor, which is a good step up, in my opinion. So that's us.
Okay, so John, you're up.
Hi, I'm Mary Jo Schofield. This is a personal story. I grew up to be a troubled youth because of a dysfunctional family. My dad was an abusive alcoholic, and it was against my mom's religion to get a divorce. I started acting out. I played silly pranks, like mostly graffiti. They didn't appreciate it. They wanted me locked up. I went to the Maine Youth Center for a while. I was branded. When I was 17, I had a baby girl. I knew she wouldn't be safe with me. People would cause trouble, so I gave her to a loving family and a new identity. When I was 19, I got sick, probably mostly from losing my baby. I went to various institutions and group homes. Back then, people didn't know a lot about mental illness. They thought you were retarded and needed to be locked up. Now everybody knows someone with a diagnosis. The worst part of it was there were religious fanatics were coming to my home and pushing it on me. It made my symptoms worse. More than 20 years ago, I decided to make a profound change and decided that I would not tell people I've changed. I would lead by example. Now it's been more than 20 years that have not been in a hospital, and more than 20 years that I have taken my medicine correctly, and more than 20 years that I've been housed. One day I got a call that my daughter wanted to meet and be part of my life. The best thing that ever happened. Once I was in a different place, I met a friend, Heather, who was an advocate with what used to be called the Advocacy Project. And we would have long discussions as she would prepare me to apply an interview with the advocates. And I've done it now for about 10 years, and I love what I'm learning and helping others. It is exactly what I always wanted to do. And I just want to state that now we go and we do outreach at what used to be Maine Youth Center. Now it's called Long Creek Correctional Facility. And I go back there and tell them I used to be here and I ended up okay. And now, instead of doing graffiti, I design various things on paper and fabric and stuff. And some of my designs are here today at the end, I think. Thank you.
Hello, my name is John Monahan, and I'm an advocate with Homeless Voices for Justice. One of the driving forces that makes me passionate about participating in this kind of work is an interest in streamlining access to mental health services for those living in poverty. My belief is that accomplishing this would not only naturally reduce the need for healthcare services overall while lowering costs, it would promote the general well-being of people who may not know how to ask for help in a culture that too often promotes individual responsibility without adequately acknowledging the barriers that can prevent people from feeling they have control over their own lives and the space to make rational, well-considered decisions. I was fortunate enough to have access to free care at Maine Medical Center when I was homeless, though I am currently denied Maine care despite several well-documented mental health problems commonly considered disabilities. During a time in my life when I felt almost completely abandoned by my friends and family, I was often plagued by acute thoughts of suicidal ideation, general hopelessness, and self-defeating anger. Despite being thankful for the opportunity life has provided me to learn and grow as a human being, I see a better future within grasp and wish to use these lessons to help facilitate that process. My experience of being shuffled from doctor to doctor in what often felt like a faceless bureaucracy was intensely dehumanizing, and I don't want others to suffer in that same way when I know we can do better as a society. My housing counselor at Oxford Street Shelter was actually the only one who really proved to me that she was actually listening when my life was really on the edge. She challenged me to meet important goals while respecting my belief system. And the lack of respect that I felt shown by the medical establishment when I was crying out for help doesn't reflect the ill will of any particular individual, but the problems that come when money and politics create overcomplicated, labyrinthian systems that place concerns over profit fluctuations before the kind of forward-thinking, community-based efforts we need on a micro and macro level. And that's truly shameful. We need a system that honors our individual journeys and not the bottom line of a privileged few. There's great help out there to be nurtured. After finding housing, I was provided 12 sessions with an LCSW in training who I felt a genuine human connection with. and she was fully capable of assessing my comfort level while helping facilitate my personal decision-making process when it came to medication. She respected my interest in pursuing a more holistic approach that would give me the life skills to survive when presented with great emotional challenges. And this is crucial when access to pharmaceuticals is often in flux, as well as an ethical model to base one's philosophy of treatment on, in my opinion. Creating greater understanding that cuts across all demographics and promotes open dialogue is what we all desire as communicators who wish to heal what is fractured in a free country. So let's work together. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to take a couple minutes to tell you a little bit about my personal history. Most of my life, Homeless Voices for Justice advocates have all experienced homelessness, and I've experienced homelessness. Most of my life, I worked at my trade. I was a master electrician, which was a rather lucrative field, so I understand. And actually, I've worked in most of the paper mills in Maine. I spent a year in East Millinocket. That paper mill just went bankrupt. And I spent 10 years as an electrician at a leather tannery in Berwick called Prime Tanning. The last year I was there, we built all these machines to ship to Shanghai. And once the company built its factory in Shanghai, 800 jobs in Maine were lost. So, it is a difficult times for a lot of people. But, as far as I'm concerned, my reason for becoming homelessness is because I'm in recovery from alcoholism, which alcoholism is a serious disease, and it can make you homeless, which it did to me. And 10 years ago, or 13 years ago, I was a resident at the Salvation Army Adult Rehabilitation Center on Preble Street when I found out about HVJ and met some people and joined the team then. And over the years, I've had relapses and been out of the picture from time to time, but I'm back on the right side of the field today, which I'm grateful for. And one thing that makes me think about, a lot of you people will be working with people with substance abuse issues. There is what's called the housing first model, because in a lot of places I was at, if you made a mistake and had a few drinks, boom, you're on the sidewalk. And it can be a dangerous occurrence. And I've met a lot of people who are 6 feet under today because that happened to them. And I'm grateful that it didn't happen to me, but it could have. And so the housing first model is about working with people, making them housed, and then working with them, suggesting ways they can get help, but not like throwing them out if they make a mistake, being more reasonable about the situation, which I think is a better thing. And one thing I want to say to you people, if some of you are going to be working on substance abuse issues, is try to be patient with whoever you are. Excuse me, I get emotional thinking about it, but try to be patient with whoever you're working with, and don't give up. So thank you. I think I'm done.
Again, I want to thank Jim and Mary Jo and John for sharing their personal stories with us. We're going to try to open it up for questions at the end of the Maine Hunger Initiative presentation, just because I know the questions can take time and I don't want to run over. But I'm going to show a few video clips now, and so hopefully most of you will be able to see the screen. Let's see. How do I make this one bigger?
That will walk to Westbrook, walk to South Portland 5 days a week to work for 5 or 6 hours to just get their foot in the door someplace. We have somebody that walks to the Maine Mall every single day to work a 3, 4, 5 hour shift just to come back because it might lead down the road to something more permanent.
I am 89 years old. I'll be 90 the 28th of May. And I came from Westbrook. My name is Viola Silva. And I've been hunting for rent since October, first part of October. And I haven't found anything that I can afford. I've heard people say, why do you want to live in a place like this? You know what? You're out in the cold, you got no place to go. Come here, you got a warm bed to sleep in, you got 3 meals a day. You want to thank God for it too.
I would like to be warm. I would not like to be standing in line I would like to be watching The Walking Dead on TV, watching the Patriots game without someone standing in front of me. I would just like to be my own person again, where I was a year ago.
I'd like to have a house, an apartment that my wife and I can share, and I'd like for her to go back to school, and I'd like to go back to school as well.
The best day here is the most difficult day of somebody's life. And so we need to recognize that and try and honor each individual person. We have doctors, professors, and then we have folks that have done day labor, veterans that have worked their entire life serving the country and are here in the shelter. So there's a little bit of everybody, and almost nobody, once you get to know them, meets any stereotype.
Apologies about not being able to figure out how to make that one larger. So this video that you're
not
watching
always,
are
it's
people
not always
moving
safe
into
to sleep
Florence
outside,
House,
especially
a new
being a
women's
female.
shelter,
I
Preble
mean, people
Street.
get stabbed, they get robbed, beat up. There's a lot of hate crimes towards homeless, just unnecessary violence. I get frustrated. Crowded spaces, having to guard what possessions I bring into the shelter with me. I mean, even just my shoes I have to guard.
I mean, you don't even feel comfortable taking your shoes off sometimes, you know. We're at home, you just kick them off and go on with it.
Good morning, ladies. It's 6:45. Rise and shine. Morning.
Right now in the shelter, it's chaos, unorganized chaos, so to speak, and it really wears down on a person.
It's a pain, waiting till somebody comes out of the bathroom, knocking on the doors about a billion times.
There isn't any locker space.
It's hard putting two people's belongings into that one little space and having it all fit, or you open it up and it all starts falling out in your face. But at least I've got some place to put my things.
I don't feel totally safe here. I don't feel 100% safe here. Sometimes I have to take a vacation from the place. I have to go somewhere else, be safer.
I'm looking forward to having my apartment, not staying at the shelter anymore.
When I get my own apartment, the biggest change in my life is that I will have no excuses left to not stay sober. I'll have no excuse to not further my education, to actually get a career. You know, there won't be any more excuses.
People are interested in solutions to homelessness, not just reactions to it.
Going home. Yeah, I got a home. I'm excited. I'm really excited. It's beautiful. I love the color.
We've tried to combine a few different social work models under one roof. If someone is homeless, they can come here and have a safe and warm place for the night. But in addition to that, we have permanent housing. People who have been on the streets for years, in almost every case, years and years, now have their own place. They're renting apartments just like everybody else and paying a percentage of their income and being part of a community here.
I got like butterflies in my stomach still. Oh, that's sweet.
I felt really excited and I felt really good and excited, I felt like a little kid.
We have to do more of this kind of work, a different kind of approach to ending homelessness.
Wow. Look at all the windows. Thank you. You're welcome. It's been a long time. Yeah.
There were so many surprises in this development. Some were very heartwarming, and whether it was the donation of time and the commitment put in by the business community like LL Bean and many others that have just been so generous, it's beyond our wildest dreams. We really see at Florence House incredible opportunities for women to kind of build their own place together in a sense of community.
When you're in a
So if you didn't hear me say at the beginning, that's the Florence House Women's Shelter, which is a program of Preble Street. And I'm forgetting how long it's been in operation. It's been maybe a little bit over 2 years that those women were able to move into Florence House. And that's a housing first model that Jim referenced, which we believe in providing housing to people who are chronically homeless before anything else, so that other things can fall into place like sobriety, education, anything that people need to work on that they haven't been able to because they haven't been able to maintain housing. I'm just going to show you one more video related to Homeless Voices for Justice, and then we'll move on to Maine Hunger Initiative.
We gather here tonight in memory of the members of our homeless community that have passed away this year and in prior years. Sometimes it is difficult to distinguish between the years because the years seem to melt together when you are homeless. Today may be winter solstice, but in all honesty, all days being homeless feel like this day, long and standing on a sidewalk. So many homeless people have died that it's sometimes both hard to comprehend and at the same time angering. There is no dignity in dying under a bridge or in a tent. There is no dignity in dying in a shelter. We all deserve the dignity of dying in a home, in peace.
So that video clip was narrated by Steve Houston, he was a beloved Homeless Voices for Justice advocate that passed away a little over a year ago. Unfortunately, just yesterday, we received news that another Homeless Voices for Justice advocate, Rebecca Dennison, passed away. She had a heart attack and passed away comfortable in the hospital yesterday. And we wanted to ask you if you would join us in a moment of silence to remember Rebecca and all of the other Homeless Voices for Justice advocates, like the folks that you heard speak today, for all their good, hard work that they do in the community. Thank you. Okay, now we're going to switch gears a bit and talk a little bit about hunger. So if the Maine Hunger Initiative folks want to come take these 3 seats and join me, that'd be great. Okay. So the Preble Street Maine Hunger Initiative is the newer of the 2 advocacy programs at Preble Street. We've been around for a little bit over 5 years, and the Maine Hunger Initiative works to address both immediate food needs through food access and working closely with food pantries, and also developing long-term solutions to help end hunger in Maine through community organizing and advocacy work. We support Cumberland County food pantries by organizing regional food pantries once a quarter. We also spend a lot of time out in the field providing technical assistance and SNAP outreach, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program outreach, formerly known as food stamps. And we also work to increase access to other USDA federal nutrition programs, such as the Summer Meals Program, school breakfast, after-school meals. I just want to give you a couple of statistics about hunger in Maine. Many people are surprised to know that Maine has the 5th highest rate of hunger in the nation. it may look like we're moving up over the years. We've gone from second to fifth, but in fact, we actually have just as many people experiencing hunger in Maine now as we did a year ago. So unfortunately, we're not actually doing better. It's just that other states are faring far worse than we are. We also have the highest rate of hunger in New England. And this rating comes from the USDA measure of household food insecurity, where they're asking people questions like whether or not they're skipping meals or eating less than they should. In Maine, about 14.9% of Mainers are experiencing food insecurity or hunger, and that's about 200,000 Mainers, which is equivalent to the total of number of Mainers living in Maine's 5 largest cities. In Maine, about 1 in 4 children are experiencing food insecurity. Children who struggle with hunger are sick more often and experience stomach aches, headaches, colds, flu, and fatigue. Hunger affects a child's ability to concentrate in school. Children who do not get enough to eat experience higher levels of behavioral, emotional, and academic problems. We also see a lot of seniors who are experiencing food insecurity. 18% of Mainers age 50 plus live below the poverty level, and only 30% of eligible seniors, meaning seniors who live are at below 185% of poverty, are receiving SNAP benefits. Seniors that are not receiving benefits, this can be attributed to stigma, transportation challenges, and misunderstanding of the program. Soup kitchens and food pantries are necessary, but they're not the answer to fighting hunger in our community. They provide temporary relief. People are allowed to visit a food pantry often only once a month, and they're given food that may last them only 2 to 3 days. Other interesting statistics about food pantries that we learned when we surveyed food pantry providers in 2009 are that food pantries are 98% volunteer run. And food pantries, 50% of the food pantries reported that they had no budget, and of those that do, their budget is less than $500 a month. Food pantries often receive donations during the holidays, and then their shelves are bare closer to the spring and summer months. In 2010, the Maine Hunger Initiative surveyed food pantry recipients. We surveyed over 700 clients, and we learned lots of information that really mirrors the USDA food insecurity measure. 83% of people reported that they worry about running out of food. 90% of people reported that food pantries are a primary source of food for them, meaning that it's right up there with going to the grocery store and how they rely on it regularly. People used to refer to food pantries as the emergency food system, and now we say it's no longer an emergency. Unfortunately, it's a frequently visited, utilized food source for people. And 63% of adults interviewed said they skipped a meal or ate less than they should so that they could feed their children. So as I mentioned earlier, the SNAP program, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, is one of our nation's best defenses against hunger. Just to confuse people or remind people again, this is formerly known as food stamps, nationally known as SNAP, and in Maine it's called the Food Supplement Program. Maine is one of the 3 states that chose to call it a different name, so they're all the same. And the SNAP program helps people put food on their table, helps people to buy the types of foods that they need to eat to live a healthy lifestyle. It also helps to free up the funds so that people can pay for other necessities like rent, utilities, and medication. And it helps people transition to self-sufficiency. On average, first-time SNAP users are off the program within 9 months. So it's there to do what it's intended to do. It's to help people get through tough times and back on their feet. And it also reduces the strain on food pantries. Food pantries are really struggling to feed their neighbors. Like I indicated, they're operating on a shoestring or non-existent budget, and there's more and more people visiting food pantries than ever before. So we really encourage people that are eligible to sign up for SNAP benefits so that they can use the pantry to supplement their benefits. About 250,000 Mainers receive SNAP or food SUP benefits, and the average household benefit is about $235 a month for, I think, an average of 4, which equates to about $1.30 per meal. So the SNAP program in itself is intended to be a supplement. It's not to meet someone's entire food needs for the month. Many people run out of benefits by the third week, and especially, if you're buying healthy foods like fruits, vegetables, protein, you can quickly work through it. The other benefit of the SNAP program is that for every $5 in SNAP, it generates $9 in the local economy. So it's also bringing money into our local economy and creating jobs. In 2012, the SNAP program brought $377 million into Maine. As I mentioned earlier, another program, a USDA federal nutrition program that we work heavily on, is the Summer Food Service Program, or otherwise known as the Summer Meals Program. And this program is set up to help feed children in the summertime when they're out of school. Many children get free and reduced meals during the school year and often get a free breakfast and free lunch, which is about 10 free meals a week. But what happens in the summer? Childhood hunger in the summertime is prevalent, and the Summer Meals Program is designed to help feed children during the summer months. So we work closely with sponsors out in the community, colleges, food service directors, public schools, churches, community centers, to try to set up sites where children can easily access them. But even with all of our hard work and other partners across the state, nationally, only 1 in 7 children that get free and reduced meals during the school year receive a free summer meal in the summertime. And in Maine, only 17% of qualifying children are receiving a meal. So if you know of a summer meal site in your community, please get involved and help, increase participation and spread the word. And if you don't know of a summer meal site in your community, please contact us about setting one up. And lastly, I just want to mention some of our advocacy and legislative efforts. We've worked very closely with Senator Alfond, who's pictured here in the slide, on bills over the last 3 to 4 years. We successfully passed a bill a year and a half ago, this last one, an act to further reduce student hunger, which essentially says that schools that have 50% or more of children receiving free and reduced lunch, that these schools must have a summer meal site in their community. And then just this past legislative session, we worked with Senator Alfond and other partners to pass a task force to end student hunger, which is a group of stakeholders that have meeting 3 to 5 times between July and December. So we've already met 4 times, and we'll meet one more time in November. And the goal of this group is to create a 3 to 5 year plan to end student hunger. So I just want to end by saying that systemic change starts here. The more that we talk about these issues, spread this information to your friends, families, coworkers, students, colleagues, the more that this type of change is possible and going to happen. So I'm going to just pass it over to my coworkers to talk a little bit more about the effects of hunger in the community and the populations that we work with. Oh, first the clip, okay. This is one of my first times emceeing multiple media sources here. Let's see, oh, that's the second one, right? Is this the one I want?
Okay, mine is about this goddess or queen. Her husband died, and he gave half of his kingdom to the Romans. And
hunger definitely impacts my classroom.
Romans told Bernicia that they owed her money.
I have had students come to me upset, and it's definitely a huge issue in our small community.
We are going to spend a little bit of time talking about how to use context clues to help us when we find words in the textbooks that we're reading.
One student in particular, Rosie, I just really felt she wasn't really applying herself in the classroom, and I couldn't figure out where that attitude was coming from. I felt that she just really didn't care about what I wanted her to learn or that school was that important. And what I realized when I brought her in one day was the main issue was that she was hungry.
I struggle a lot, and most of the time it's because my stomach is really hurting.
So let's take a look.
My teacher tells me to get focused, and she told me to write focus on my little sticker. And every time I look at it, I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to be focusing. I start yawning, then I zone out. And so I'm just looking at the teacher, and I look at her, and all I think about is food. So I have these little visions in my eyes. Sometimes when I look at her, I vision her as a banana, so she goes like a banana. And then everybody in the class is like apples or oranges. And then I'm like, oh, great.
What were the two that you were trying to narrow it down to?
A and B.
A and B. And why were you thinking A?
We are tying the arms behind the backs of children as they go into public schools. We're making it so that we spend money for teachers and then we deliver to them a lot of children who can't learn.
The lost potential. Some of those kids could potentially be great scientists or go on to be leaders in our armed forces. But the impact that hunger has messes everything up. And as a result of that, we're weakening our nation.
Hi everyone, my name is Jamie. I'm actually a student at UNE. I'm in the MSW program, and I have the great fortune of having an internship with both the Maine Hunger Initiative and Homeless Voices for Justice, so I feel extremely lucky. This clip that we just saw was from a film called A Place at the Table about hunger. So as we saw in the case of Rosie, when she's hungry in school, she can't concentrate. It gets so bad that she's having visions of food. So what else does hunger look like for our kids? As Michelle said, it can present as a stomach ache, a headache, and a general feeling of being unwell. Hunger causes us to lose focus. It causes us to get frustrated, become anxious, elevate our stress level, and get angry. We know that these emotional responses are due to behavior regulating hormones such as serotonin that seem to fluctuate more during stress and hunger. And these fluctuations affect the parts of our brain that are involved in regulating emotional responses. So what are we doing about this? At the Maine Hunger Initiative, we advocate for and support school districts that are trying to nourish kids like Rosie through programs such as school breakfast. I know Michelle talked a little bit about school breakfast, but I'll just give you a little bit more information. We know that school breakfast improves a student's dietary intake. We know that students who benefit from Universal School Breakfast Program, which is offered free to everyone, experience fewer hunger symptoms and make fewer visits to the school nurse, and it reduces stigmatization. We know that access to school breakfast decreases the risk of breakfast skipping, especially among low-income students. Breakfast skipping is associated with higher cholesterol and insulin levels as well. We know that students who eat school breakfast closer to class and test-taking time perform better on standardized tests than those who skip breakfast. We know school breakfast is associated with improved attendance and decreased tardiness. We know that eating school breakfast improves a child's ability to react well during frustrating situations. These are just some of the many benefits to one of the many ways we can combat hunger for our children in schools. So now we'll see okay. I'll invite Emily and Jen to talk to you about some barriers.
Thanks again for coming, everyone. The clip that you would have seen was also from the documentary A Place at the Table, which I would highly recommend if you get a chance to see it. It's a really emotional but impactful documentary. My name is Emily Loker, and this is my coworker, Jen Grobe, and we're both AmeriCorps Vistas at the Maine Hunger Initiative. So one of the things in the clip that it's like a mobile health clinic, and this little cute girl goes in, and the Southern woman asks her what she's had for breakfast and what she snacks on, and basically the health worker comes to the conclusion that this girl is not getting fed breakfast, and when she snacks at home, she's eating things like chips. So the conclusion of the clip is that obesity and hunger are interrelated, as counterintuitive as that might seem. So hunger is about not only access to food, but access to healthy food, which comes as no surprise. Some personal experiences that Jenna and I have had with accessing healthy food for the hungry is we visited a couple of food pantries over the last couple of months, and they have a great variety of different offerings, and one that we went to in Portland only offered its clients bread and cake. So as Michelle was saying, many people are turning to food pantries for their main source of sustenance, and if all you're offered is bread and cake, where does that leave you? Luckily, Maine Hunger Initiative has a grant called the Farm to Pantry grant from TD Bank, and that does offer some funds for farmers to bring in fresh produce, but that is limited too. It's only for a select number of days, or a select amount, and to a select group of pantries. So it is just part of the solution. And then once the funds run out at those pantries, they are left with whatever donations they have. So we've already talked about emergency food systems and governmental programs. Now we're going to talk about difficulties in accessing them. We hope that this will give you a better idea of why people continue to experience hunger. So this is my coworker, Jen.
Hi, thank you. So the first barrier that we want to talk to you guys about is stigma. In a country where the American dream still thrives and where many people still believe in the idea of picking yourself up by your bootstraps, asking for help can be frowned upon. Judgment from others, or even the fear of judgment from others, can prevent many people from asking for the services or the help that they need. And a food pantry client who I talked to in Sweden, Maine, she told me how she felt stigmatized accessing the food pantry there. And this was to help her family of 5. They had recently been evicted from their home, and they were living with her mother, who was had unstable mental health. And even despite these circumstances, she felt ashamed coming to the pantry. She said it was, quote, an emotional pain that hurt her pride and exacerbated her depression. And in her words, low-income people are made to feel like losers. Her sentiments are not unique. Unfortunately, this is a feeling shared by many people who are accessing food pantries or having difficulties making ends meet. And in our work, Emily and I often see stigma being a barrier for people, preventing them from applying for SNAP benefits, or from coming to the summer meal sites, or from applying for the free and reduced lunch program in schools. So that's one major barrier. A second barrier that Emily and I see in our work is transportation. Gas prices, costly car repairs, and lack of adequate public transportation, particularly in the rural parts of Maine, often prevent people from getting the help that they need, whether it's deciding if the food at the food pantry is worth the gas money to get there, or they can't get to the local DHHS office to apply for benefits. It's a huge barrier, and people often have to weigh their money, whether they're going to pay for their car repair or gas, or whether they can pay for food. One thing Emily and I have been doing in our work to help people overcome these 2 barriers is building relationships with clients, going to them at the food pantry, building relationships, and then helping them fill out the application for SNAP or something, so that they don't have to try and get to the DHHS office, and we try and help them overcome stigma. Unfortunately, Emily and I are only 2 people, and we're really trying to recruit more volunteers to help with SNAP application assistance. So if anyone is interested in that, please be in touch with us.
Thank you. And it really is a very rewarding job to go into a food pantry and be able to see a person who has felt like they can't access a benefit get that. It really does help them a lot. The last barrier we're going to talk about is, because you're all healthcare professionals, special diets. So obviously we're seeing those more and more in the 21st century, like it or not. And I spoke with a client who had Crohn's disease. He was on food stamps, but his benefit had gone down $100 a month, so he had gone from like $180 to $80. So anyone that's trying to live with a special diet where you have to cut a lot of things out on $80 a month, it's really difficult. I did meet him at a food pantry in Portland. Unfortunately, he can only eat about a third of what they offer at the food pantry. So again, he's counting on these SNAP benefits, counting on the food pantry, and somewhere in there, he's not making it. So again, another barrier, special diets. Thank you all so much. I think I'm going to turn it over to Michelle, if I'm not mistaken, I'm so sorry. I would love to introduce my colleague, Thomas Potasic.
Hello, my name is Thomas Potasic. I am presently the Veterans Healthcare Outreach Community Organizer at Preble Street. I started that back in February, but the 3 years prior to that, I was an advocate with Homeless Voices for Justice. And so I'm going to speak a little bit about SNAP and food insecurity, kind of from the perspective of someone who has gone through it and has utilized those services. The first thing I want to point out that comes from the SNAP program that is so important is that kind of that sense of security you get, knowing that a very, very important segment of your life is taken care of. It's not something that you have to worry about, because that constant worry about where you're going to be getting your next meal, and if is the food pantry going to have this, if I go to the soup kitchen, are they going to have something I can eat? To be able to take control of that yourself it alleviates a really, really big worry from your life and allows you to focus on other things. To me, the SNAP program is about so much more than just food. It's about providing a semblance of normalcy in your life. Because standing in line to get into a soup kitchen is not normal. Having to go to a food pantry every week is not normal. Going to the grocery store, buying what you need, bringing it home, and preparing it, that's normal. That's how you feel like a normal person. And that's something that SNAP provides, that these other measures that are supposed to be temporary, but unfortunately aren't, can't provide. And the stigma that was mentioned, when I was in the Oxford Street shelter for a year. And when I got out of the shelter, I'm a veteran, and I got out on a VASH voucher, which is essentially just Section 8, but specifically for veterans. But I was in my place for 6 months before I went and applied for SNAP, because I felt like, I've got this voucher that's allowing me to have this housing. How dare I ask for anything more? And it wasn't until a friend of mine that I knew in the shelter who had got housed invited me over to his place to see his new place and to have dinner. And when I got there, he ran some options by me that we can have for dinner. And, I'm looking in his refrigerator and looking in his cupboards. And he, of course, when he got his place, immediately went and got SNAP. And I'm looking in his refrigerator and his cupboards, and I'm thinking, gee, I want food in my refrigerator. I want food in my cupboards. And I went the next day and applied for a SNAP, and then, like I say, realized, the benefit that you get from having that security. And it's worth noting to this day, so I'm several years removed from that time in the shelter when I was eating everything at the soup kitchen. But to this day, I still sometimes open up my freezer or my cupboards, and apparently I'm not after anything in there. I'm just looking and seeing stuff in there, and that makes me feel good. And I would have thought several years ago, I would have thought that would never be the case. That sounds ridiculous. I'm certainly beyond being pleasured by seeing food in my cupboards, but you know, when that's not something that's always there, when that's something that's in question, you know, you kind of realize just how important that is. And there was a little mention about, you know, healthy food, and although I would never criticize, you know, soup kitchens for the food that they prepare. They do. I know Preble Street does an amazing job, but they are working with, you know, kind of what they can get, which ends up oftentimes being a high starch, pretty high carb diet. And I know the year that I was in the shelter, well, in about a year and a half, that control over my diet was out of my hands. But in that year and a half, I gained 100 pounds. I'm sure depression and being homeless and all that was part of that too. But you know, not having that control over your diet is a huge thing. So just to reiterate again, you know, SNAP is about so much more than just the food. It's about feeling normal and secure in a very important area of your life so that you can focus on and progress in other areas. So thank you.
So again, thank you, Jamie, Emily, Jen, and Thomas.